Google Classroom is obviously a great way to post assignments and information for your class, and now even a great way to set up a Google Meet. But sometimes sharing is a little trickier than it should be, and you might create something that has some attached files, and those attached files are giving people grief in terms of permissions and access. So there is a way to share an entire folder of files with your entire classroom without having to post it in Classroom or type all your students' names. So let's take a look at how that would work when I'm in my Drive account here. I'm going to go ahead and launch Google Classroom and show you what I have. There's a bunch that I'm a student in up at the top here, but the ones I'm focused on right now are these two. Tyndale 2019 I play with, and Tyndale Training are two classrooms that I've created to mess around with over the years. So when I want to share something with, say, this Tyndale 29 classroom, I've shown in the past how I can grab a file, and I'm just going to right-click my examples here for a second, go to Share, and I can go ahead and type in Tyndale 2019, and typically that will pop up. Right now it's not, and I've had some emails letting me know that other people have had trouble getting their Google Classrooms to actually pop up in the little people box here, even though it should be. But we can get around that. You have Google Contacts, people that you can email. I'm going to come down here into the little waffle again and click on Contacts. There we go, Contacts. So people you can email, or even whole groups that you can email. I've got one here for principals, that if I were to type Principals 2019 into an email, say, all these names just populate for me. And that's a great option. But we need to shortcut this for our kids. So here's how I'm going to handle that one. There is a little group address that gets created for all the students in your classroom. But if I were to come here and just try and email these kids, it actually populates individual names, which is handy, but not for this purpose. So here's how I'm going to get around all of this. I want to figure out what is it, the address, the group address for these students. And one easy place that you can actually see that is on your Google Calendar, of all places. Probably not what you were expecting. I'm going to click on Google Calendar. Now, I have a bunch of other stuff here. It doesn't matter for right now. I'm going to come down here and scroll down, and there's my Tyndale 2019 Google Calendar. Well, when I click the three dots, just like any other calendar, I can go to the Settings and Sharing, and I can see who has access to this calendar. Well, when I scroll down, I'm going to discover the group address for all of my kids right here. That group address encloses all my students. So if I share with this group, then I'm going to be able to give it to all those kids all at once. And just to prove that this exists, the group is Tyndale _ 2019 blah blah blah, this other gibberish. So let's just see what happens if I were to come back here and go ahead and share that with Tyndale _ 2019. Oh, still nothing popping up. So it's really giving me grief, which is again why we don't want to have to fight with this thing. So now that I know on my calendar, I can come down here. I'm going to highlight that information. I'm going to copy it. And I want to create a Google contact for this information. So I'm going to go to Contacts. I've got it open already, but just to do it again, I'll click the little waffle and scroll down to my contacts. I'm going to create a new contact over here. And I'm going to call it, you know what, I'm going to start all of them with Classroom, because I might have multiple classrooms, and I want to be able to make sure I can identify these guys. So I'm going to call that Classroom, and I could call it grade 5 or grade 6 or whatever the name of my classroom is. So in this case, I'll do that. I'll call it Tyndale 2019, just so I know exactly which classroom it is I happen to be sharing with. And the email address is going to be that group address I just copied a moment ago. So I'm going to come and paste in that ugly group address, and I'm going to click Save. So I've created this contact, called them Classroom, Tyndale 2019, and it's got that ugly address there. But this means I can now go ahead and jump into my Google Drive, and let's say I do a lot of Screencastify stuff. I'm going to search for Screencastify. There we go. Hit Enter. Because Castify saves all of its stuff into the Castify folder. I can even double click and take a peek. It's buried a few folders deep, which is why it was easier for me to search for it. And there's all kinds of stuff in here, including that new option with little MP3 files. Maybe I've created some MP3 files for a Google slide, and the slide is shared with those kids, but they can't listen to any of the audio. It's because it's sitting here and nobody has access to it. Classroom doesn't automatically apply the same permissions to those other files. So what I'm going to do is click the little arrow here for my entire Castify folder. I'm going to click on Share, and I'm going to share it with my classroom. And there it's popping up for me already, just like any other contact would. My Tyndale 2019, and it's the whole classroom. It's a whole group. And I'm going to go ahead and say, well, I don't need to notify them. That would be annoying. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to skip those invitations. Good. Perfect. And now everything in this entire folder is going to be accessible by that group, by that entire Google Classroom group. So if I had these audio files and I had attached them, like I say, to a Google slideshow, and I pasted or posted that in my classroom somewhere, that classroom group of kids will now be able to access that. And that's the big advantage of using the group address instead of, say, all these individual names. If I had 25 kids in there, and I went to my drive and I went ahead and shared a folder with all those individual names, well, as soon as a new student arrives in my classroom, they wouldn't have any access to that stuff because I used individual names. This way, by coming to Classwork, clicking your Google Calendar, finding the calendar for that specific classroom, and going to your sharing settings, that's going to allow you to find the group address that's going to be able to, oh, look at that, encapsulate all of those kids. And that way, if the membership in your classroom changes at all, then all the permissions will take care of themselves as well. You won't need to come back and start messing with that again and again. You'll be able to email to that address. You'll be able to share specific files or obviously folders to that address. You'll be able to use it in a number of different ways if you need to. So there's a handy option for when you're creating this stuff and you want to be able to share an entire folder or a specific file with your entire Google Classroom and it's giving you grief. You can use that new Classroom contact and share it with them that way.